Welcome to Al-Mena, a new generation bringing new areas of our fellowship together with unity. All of our speakers are shared on our WhatsApp audio groups and speaker channels. The links will be dropped in the chat. If you're listening to this recording and need help, we have a way out that works. Please reach out and send us an email at ca.almena2026@gmail.com, and the crew will reach out and get back to you. We have invited Pauline from Glasgow today to share a message of depth and weight for 45 minutes. Pauline, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for introducing me and being of service this evening, Kyra, and everybody else on Al-Mena who is of service. It's just great to be here and be amongst friends and look at the screen and see so many friendly faces and people that make me welcome on the meeting. Firstly, I'll introduce myself. My name's Pauline and I'm from Glasgow in Scotland. I'm going to speak slow so that you understand me. So I'm going to dedicate this meeting, like I always do, to my sister Yasmin, who died of this insidious disease. It's no joke. So this is for you, sister. And I'm going to read our 7-step prayer. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me the strength as I go on from here to do your bidding. Amen. We just have a moment's silence to bring our God into the room, our spiritual Creator. Thank you, guys. So like I said, I would like to hold this meeting up for my sister Yasmin, who's no longer with us. We come from a family of 4 sisters, and I'm the oldest, and there's me and 3 smaller ones, and there's only a couple of years in between us all. So for the newcomer to get some identification, I'll let you know where I come from, because it says in the book, let people know where you come from, where you are here, and how you stay here. And I'm not going to share the mess. I'm going to share the message, right? But for the newcomer, we'll get some identification for the newcomer. I come from Scotland, from the south side of Glasgow, a beautiful suburb called Shields. Where I stayed and where I was brought up, my father is from Punjab in North India, and my mother is Scottish. So where we were brought up was a predominantly white area, and there wasn't a lot of kids like me around, or my sisters. So I always felt I did stand out. I always looked really different from everybody else, and all I ever wanted to do was fit in, but I never fitted in. I was always different. I didn't know that I had a problem then, but I believe I was born with this insidious, horrible illness. That's what I believe. And it's my story and it's my opinion. It's just that I felt from a very, very young age, I never stood with people. I was always on my own. I was always standing on the periphery of the crowd. I never fitted in. I never ever fitted in. I thought when I was speaking to people, I would think of every single thing I was saying, and I would think, what does he or she think about what I'm saying? Is it okay or is it not okay? That's not normal for a kid that's 8 years of age to think these things. If you had a red coat on and I had the same coat in blue, I'd want your red coat. My mother had red hair and green eyes, and freckly skin, and I wanted red hair and green eyes and freckly skin. And when people said to me, "Oh, look at you, Pauline, with your black hair and your browns. Oh, look at that Lee," my mum called Lee. "Oh, your daughters are beautiful," I would cringe. My toes would literally, they would curl up. I didn't want to be pointed out. I wanted to go right into the background and fade away. I didn't want to be noticed, you know. I remember being 8 years of age and being in the classroom. And just remember the wee tiny desks you used to get in the classroom and the wee tiny seats, right? And this teacher, I can't say her name, but she's still alive today. She would come behind me and put one hand on either side of me, and she'd say, "Get your pen out that hand and get it into that hand." If this was 100 years ago, Pauline, you'd have been burnt as a witch. I took that literally, right? And any time I put the pen back in my left hand, she would get the ruler and scalp me with the ruler, right? And not only, she said, "Is that bad enough?" But a wee packy as well. And I was like, "What?" And I remember saying to my parents, "Dad, she's calling me a packy and we're Indian." That's how I never had a clue about racism. I never had a clue. I looked at my teacher and I thought, she's an educated woman, even at a very young age, and she's calling me a packy and I can't write with my left hand, and what's wrong with that? That's how I stood out to start with. Life went on. We were a happy wee family. I know my mum struggled. I could see she struggled. I could see money-wise, she wanted to keep up with the Jones. My dad came to this country from Punjab in the 60s with a Master of Arts degree and a Bachelor of Arts degree, and he couldn't get a job. So him and his brothers ended up buying a pub in Glasgow, in the south side of Glasgow. I know. He thought he was coming to this country to be a professor in Glasgow University. It wasn't happening. All our family are educated, including me. I've got, believe it or not, I've got a degree myself in music and drama, because we are not stupid, guys. Look at the way we've got to live our lives. Lying, manipulating, twisting people around our finger. We've got to have good memories. Talking about myself, because I tell so many lies. So many, no, that fish was that size. Loads of lies. So my dad came here to this country. They opened up a pub, and that's what it was like. He was never at home. My mum was always there with the kids. And we used to go round to my auntie's, and she would rush us all back up the road at 10 o'clock at night before my dad came back for the pub. Our family were what you call, in Scotland, a teetotal family, you know, like a family that don't drink, they don't take drugs, they're educated people, they live a good, clean life. So why was it I was so different? Like I said earlier, I do believe I was born like that. As times went on and through my life, I would do things like I would walk on maybe the cracks on the road, and I would say in myself, if I do that, then I'll be okay, right? If I say this word 20 times, I'll be okay. I lived in a constant state of perpetual terror. I lived in a constant state of perpetual fear. And I don't know what I was scared of. And I don't know what the terror was for. I used to lie in bed at night, and I would see this man at the bottom of my bed, and he would be shaking my bed. And I would say to my sisters the next day, "Is there ever anybody standing at the bottom of your bed shaking your bed?" But it was terrors. It was the unmanageability, which is addiction. And it led to me having nightmares, and it led to me being full of fear and just being scared my whole life. At the age of 12, my mum got up one Sunday morning, and I seen her with two black plastic bags. And she says, "I'm going to go, Pauline." And she walked out, And she left me at 12. I was in primary 7 with 3 wee sisters to bring up. The youngest was 2, coming on 3. The next one was 6. The next one was 10. And she just went, and I mind saying, Mum, where are you going? She went, well, I'm just going to the laundrette. And I went, but we've got the twin tubs. I went, we've got a twin tub. She went, I'm going to laundrette, Pauline, and I'm not going to be back for a long time. So she went away and she walked right out of our lives. I remember seeing her taking her rings off and putting them on top of the sideboard and leaving my dad a letter. I remember my dad got up and he read that letter and he just broke down. He was never the same after that. He definitely took some sort of nervous breakdown. So here I'm left with 3 wee sisters at the age of 12, and my dad's lost the plot. And he gave me £95, and he went, Pauline, that's for you to run the house. Run the show, run the house, be the actor, rip all the wallpaper off. I would wallpaper my mother out my life. I would paint the rooms that she painted at 12. I would rip the wallpaper off. All the antique ornaments that she bought, I flung them all away. All her clothes, I gave them to the neighbour. Definitely traumatised, I would say. My sisters and I were very, very close. And that's how we got through life, and that's what we did. I hated my mother. I despised her. I loathed that woman for having 4 children and allowing me to be the mother to 3 of them. And I'd no way of getting in contact with her or nothing. So that's how life went. We went on with life like that. My dad would, he was an amazing man. He was a beautiful, kind, gentle and honourable man. You know, have you ever heard some people say, he's too good for this world? My dad was like that, you know. He was a wrestler at Union Punjabi, and he was a black belt in judo. So we were all safe round about him. And he had the pub and he was still going. But unless my dad was doing that, he didn't know what to do with us. We were feral, we were wild, and we ran about like crazy. The first thing that I did was when I was about 15, my dad went to hospital. He tried, it's his story, but he jumped out a window and he broke his back and he broke his ankles. And he handed me, a couple of days before it, he gave me, he called it the dig money, the housekeeping money. And he said, take that money, Pauline. He says, and buy shopping. So that's what I did. And I bought shopping. And you know the old gas meters you used to get? I broke into them. It was a 50 pence. And I kept putting the same 50 pence in, so we never had to pay for our gas. I don't know why I wasn't petrified then, but I wasn't scared then because I was in control then. So for the first time in my life, there was no fear. All my friends at the time smoked hash, ganja, Rocky, Packy Black, you know, red lip, blonde lip, gold seal, all that kind of stuff. So I became a connoisseur of hash and I bought a lot of it and just built the money up and built the money up. And we sold it to all our friends. And that's what kept the wolf for our door. And that's how I got by, right? Did I think I was going to be a drug dealer at 15? Of course I didn't. I was an absolute nerd. My nose was always stuck in a book because I liked fantasy. I liked to be taken away to another world. I liked to be involved in other people's lives, as long as it wasn't my own. That's what was happening with me at that point in time. I remember at the age of 16, my dad the whole time in and out hospital. I remember skinning up a 3 skinner, and somebody saying, you should try it for your anxiety, Pauline. 15-year-old shouldn't have anxiety. But I did, and I still couldn't sleep. And I remember in my dad's living room, sitting in one of the big Indian cushions with a tray, because you couldn't get tobacco on the floor. And I made a big roll up, a big doobie. And I remember the first puff of it, right? The feeling at ease and comfort. And I was like, oh. What an amazing feeling. It took away all the terror and I wasn't petrified anymore. And I just thought to myself, why have I not done this before now? It gave me the courage and the calmness to face the life I had to face, to get up in every morning, get my sisters ready for school, get their dinners, get their packed lunches, make their breakfast, make their dinner for coming back, make sure they had a bath. They were too clean, they were too tidy, our house was too clean and it was too tidy. And I was like Hitler, I was an absolute tyrant, right? I was petrified in case people that I know nothing about, but I was scared of the name social work department, the police. I've always had a thing about these people. They do an amazing job, right? But I was full of fear and I was petrified and I didn't want them anywhere near my sisters at all. And from a very, very, very young age, I said to all my sisters, tell nobody nothing, because if you tell no one nothing, nobody can do anything. And we're dealing drugs here. And if you tell nobody nothing, then I can't go to prison. I was too young to go to prison, but that's what I said. So that's what we did. I went from, you know how in the book it says you go from one thing to another? Well, I did. I got high on my own supply and I went from hash to acid, which a boyfriend at the time who was 10 years older than me, what's he doing with somebody at 16? I don't know, but that's what happened. And he would post me up to Amsterdam and it was pink Mike and then it was blotting paper. And I remember sitting, he says, Pauline, sit with tweezers and do it with tweezers or else you'll be tripping really quick. But that's what I did. And I sold that in and around all the nightclubs in Glasgow. Time went on and I would stop one thing and then I would take another thing. And at 17 years of age, I found myself sitting with a quarter ounce of heroin, sitting in my bedroom. Nobody was in the house, making any tenner bags and £20 bags and deciding it would be a good idea to have an injection. I mean, how crazy is that? We're absolutely nuts. We think doing things like that to our bodies are okay, but I did. I thought it was okay. I just wanted something just to make me feel better. I had nobody to talk to. I don't feel sorry for myself. I had literally did not have anybody to talk to. I had nobody I could trust. I had nobody I could confide in because I had to be strong for my dad because he was falling apart and my sisters and I couldn't tell. There was nobody to tell. So drugs helped me and drugs put their big arms round about me and they kept me safe and they kept me protected. And that's what I did. And I sat and I had an injection and that was me out. And I came to about 4 hours later. I'd obviously overdosed and I came to about 4 hours later. At the time, I was working in a camping shop, all places. And I remember I was injecting every single day. And, you know, at lunchtime, I would sit with my arms like this, feeling terrible and cold and shaking. I never even knew that I had a habit. I never even knew that my body needed it, you know. I never knew that I suffered from a threefold illness, which is physical and spiritual. And if you put one thing, mental, it sets off a phenomenon of a craving and you just want more, you know, and you'll do anything to get it. Some of us say, I will never do that. I used to do that. Yeah. I'll never steal. Yeah. I'll never sell myself. Yeah. I'll never go out with somebody for drugs. Yeah. I'll never sell them. Yeah. I'll never commit fraud. I'll never set up terms and pay things I can't even talk about. And I did them. And I did them. And I used to look at people and I would say, well, I'm not like her. You know, I'd wear long sleeve tops to hide my track marks. They were like real tracks up and down my arms and my legs. But because I would wear my makeup every day and I had money in my pocket and my house was spotless and I had my own flat then. That was all right. You know, I was better than these people. I was better because it was all about how you looked. It wasn't about how you felt inside. So time went on, and that's what I did. I could stop, but I could never stay stopped for any length of time. Did I think I had a problem? Aye, I did a wee bit, but not to the degree as the other people round about me, you know, because I was a dealer and I didn't have to do all the things they had to do yet, right? I went to music and drama school and I got my degree in music and drama. I love music. I play a couple of different instruments. And last year I wrote 2 plays. And I wrote a play about my family's life story called Safar So Far, which in Hindi, I mean, it's my journey so far, right? Like a full circle. In fact, I've got a group, an anonymous group that people can come on, and that's what I called it. And I remember sitting in the Tramway Theatre in Glasgow, and it was doing a 6-week run, and I invited every single family member on the Indian side and the Scottish side, and I changed their names, but that was it. And I told my whole family's life story about my family growing poppy, opium in India, and about the things my mother's family were getting up to. And I was just very honest with it all. And I remember their heads, you know, like the woman in The Exorcist, and her head goes round in circles. That's what they were like. And so, what I'm trying to get at is, us addicts are very smart people. We're very clever people. It's like we're like Jekyll and Hyde, you know. You look at us and you see from the outside in, they look presentable, they've got a job, she's playing the guitar, she plays the clarinet, she writes plays, she puts plays on, you know. She's a teacher. I was a teacher in schools and I taught music and drama, but she's an absolute crackpot. She's nuts. And if she can't have things her own way, it's the highway. It's like if you don't do things that Pauline wants, it's like, well, to hell with you. It has to be my way. I've always got to be in control or I don't feel safe. It's always got to be my way. I always have to have money or I don't feel safe. I always have to be belittling people or I don't feel safe. At this point in time, loads of stuff had happened. I got married. I had our daughter, beautiful daughter. I did a lot of things that normal people do, right? I get married 3 times. I love wedding cake, you know. I love good-looking men, right? That was one of my vices. If I would see somebody, I'd go, right, you're mine. And I never even thought, did they even like you, Pauline? I looked at people as if they were possessions, right? God, thank God I'm not like that today, right? But that's the way I was. And I'd go up and I'd get a wedding dress and I'd go up there and get married and the pipers would be playing all for Mary's wedding. I'm like, what are you doing? And then I would try to fit in to their way of life, anything that wasn't my life, right? Because my life, I didn't like my life. I wanted to feel safe and protected by a man because I never felt it with my mum and I never felt it with my dad. And I don't feel sorry for myself. I always say that. It's just, it just wasn't the way it was. And I hated my mum. I hated her, you know. But that's another story. You know, at the end of the day, you don't judge anybody. People do what they do because you ever thought they can't do anything else? They're not able to do anything else. And if we open our eyes and actually listen to them, then we'll find out why they do the things they do. And they will find out, no, it's not all about us. There's things going on with their lives, you know. And that was what happened to my mum. And I'd went on with my life and I became a drama teacher and I'd done a lot of things. Had my family, travelled the world with my man who was in a big band, right? He was a singer, he was a songwriter, and he was a musician. And I had a great time. And it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I loved it all, right? Until it wasn't. until I met coke, and my whole life came crashing down really, really quickly when that got a hold of me in the crack pipe, and that got a hold of me. Things went fast. I ended up selling drugs again. I was in and out of prison a lot. A lot of things happened in between, a lot of the madness and the using, but that's that. That's what got me to where I am just now. It's just to let the newcomers know that you can be a pretty normal person and things creep up on you, and they creep up on you. And when you stop taking drugs and you have a break, and when you come back to them again, it's 10 times worse. It's a mental obsession hits you and you're affected 10 times worse. And it doesn't make any difference how long you stop taking them. The difference is that you go back to them and your life becomes worse. And you lose everything. You lose your family, you lose your health, you lose your self-respect, you lose it all. And I ended up, I'm just going to go to this part now after all the madness, 6 years and about 5 weeks ago, sitting in prison, in Corton Vale Women's Prison, looking at a sentence for powder. I had a bit of powder, only one bit, and I got caught with it. And I'm thinking, well, it's not chopped up into bags, so I'll be okay. And I was sitting there, and I went to the gym one night, and I've come back from the gym, and I looked up and I saw a poster up in the wall. And that poster went, car, meeting, teas, coffees, and chocolate biscuits. And I went to that meeting, and it was a cocaine anonymous meeting, and there was chocolate biscuits there. And if you're in prison, you'll do anything for a chocolate biscuit and a decent cup of coffee, right? And I remember sitting there, and these two women were there. They say God shows up when the pupil's ready, the teacher will show up. That night there was these two women there. One woman was Punjabi. One cat, I'll just let the cat out. When you go, go. Nice. Sorry about that. One woman was Punjabi and one woman was Scottish. And that night, these two women sat down and told their experience, strength, and hope for about 20 minutes each. And that night, I went from being lower than a snake's belly, guys, to realising I was a very, very sick individual. I wasn't a bad woman. I was a very, very sick woman, and I had been born with this insidious, horrible dis-ease of addiction, and I'd been suffering from it, as far as I can tell, for the age of 8, and it continued through my whole life. And see, once I knew what it was, and once these women had told me,
and you agreed to take 10 minutes off your time? I can actually work.
Someday it's need muted. I have to do something about it, you know, because once you find out what you're suffering from, that's you're fucked. You need to do something about it. So I remember she said, Pauline, I want you to go back to your cell and I want you to pray, because I was like, what will I do? What can I do? She went, go on your knees and pray. And I remember saying, I pray every night for myself, and I pray for my sisters and my dad. And don't pray for yourself. Pray for the people you've hurt. Pray for the people I've OD'd and no come back for the OD because of the drugs that you sold them, Pauline. And I remember looking at her like, what? But I took it in the chin, and I did. And I got on my knees, and I sat down, and I spoke the way I'm speaking to you tonight. And I made the longest journey in the shortest time, from my head to my heart. And it was like a flow. It was like a flow of energy, right? And it was amazing. The only way I can explain it, I felt at peace. I felt at peace. I'd allowed my higher power to come into my life. I'd stopped being afraid. Just like that. I was crying. I was emotional. But I knew I was, don't ask me why. I knew I was going to be okay. I just knew it. And when I went to court a few days later, these two women came up with me, and they wrote in a community service report for me, and I get out on 2 years probation. And for 3 times a week, I would go to this place called the 218 Club, and I would attend. It was like a recovery cafe, and I learned how to do acupuncture, auricle acupuncture in the ears, and I did that for free. And I'm into yoga. I'm a total yogi, and I would show people how to do yoga. And then I started doing drama workshops, and this was me giving back, right, for all the shit and carnage and mayhem I'd caused everybody, right? And I couldn't get enough. I just kept on going to all the recovery cafes and going to meetings and meeting people. And I still felt there was something missing, right? And this lady said to me, have you ever went through the 12 steps? And I was like, what's the 12 steps? And she told me what they were. And then she went, get yourself a big book, like this big book, with my fancy leather cover, right? She went, get yourself a book and go through the 12 steps. And I remember getting the book. And don't say, guys, like, oh, how am I going to buy that book? You can run out and buy a couple of bags, right? Or a rock or something daft like that. So you can buy this and you can sit down and you can read it. And I'll tell you, I'll guarantee you, reading it won't save your life, but I guarantee you your life will be totally changed when you do start to read it and you start to discuss it with another addict, right? Because the power of one addict speaking to another, that's what's phenomenal. And the phenomenal of a craving will leave you, and the phenomenal of love working with one addict to another will come into your life, right? And you just roll your sleeves up, guys, get yourself a sponsor, and you just go through the steps, one step at a time. And listen, guys, no question is daft. See the mad questions I used to ask my sponsor. I think you're going to think this is crazy, but ask anything. Ask anything, because it's the only way you find out. And you know what? We help our sponsor as much as he or she helps us, because that's the power of two addicts, right? You can only get it and keep it by giving it away to another addict. And I've been in recovery for just over 6 years, and I'll sponsor men and I'll sponsor women. I don't care. I'm a very strong individual. For anybody that knows me, nobody can bat their eyes at me. I'm not going to jump into bed with a guy. I'm quite happy to sponsor a guy, and he's safe and I'm safe, and I'll take you through the 12 steps. But you know what? I've met so many really good, strong women. I was never a woman's woman, even though my sisters, I've got 3 sisters. But see now today, the amount of really strong women that I have in my circle, my wee tribe, that I can phone them and they can phone me. And I'll tell you, we do help each other. And they don't phone up and say, Pauline, can I tap 50 quid off you? Or can I have this off you? They phone up and we sit and we talk as friends, as mothers, as sisters, as addicts to each other. And we help each other. Yeah, I remember going through these 12 steps. And I remember when I got to my 3rd step, we go to a cottage down in the country. It's like 300-year-old. It's a big courtyard. It's like where horses used to be, which I also work with them as well, but I'll tell you about them in a minute. And I remember kneeling down and doing my 3rd step prayer, and it was so quiet. And I remember reading, reading out loud, and the next minute the wind started blowing through the trees, and the birds started singing, and I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" And I remember shouting, "I believe you! I know you're there! I believe you!" Right? We get things called spiritual experiences, or spiritual awakenings, which are changes in thinking, right? And we start to notice things that we've not noticed before, like our children's faces, like the joy on our children's faces, like they don't turn away from us anymore, like they're happy. to be round about us, that they don't cross the other side of the road or leave the country like my daughter did with me. She left the country for 5 years for the hurt that I caused her. You know, I do. I've got a son as well, Leon and Samara, and I'm a grand today, a Gaga. They call me Gaga. I've got 2 wee grandkids called Eden and Jude. One's 2 and one's 8. And the way I look at it, guys, right? See if you cannot take this into your family, first and foremost, you've got no reason doing it. We do it for the fireside out, right? God willing, my 2 children, the disease of addictions went right over them, but they say it can jump a generation. But that's here, it's all hearsay. We don't know. It can happen when it happens. All I know is I need to make sure that my family know about this shitty, horrible illness of addiction. And the prescription is a sponsor, the 12 steps, and a higher power. Do you know what's fantastic, right? You can get anything you want as a higher power, right? Mine was horses for a while. I've come back to recovery right after years, and I'm a horse trainer. I worked with horses all my life years ago, and I've come back, and I'm now an equine therapist, and I help people in recovery through horses. It's a lot to explain, but that's what I do. And if people that are in Scotland, I will take them up, and I'll take them up to my horses where I was the day, right up until 10 minutes before I jumped on this meeting, and I'll show you, you know, the beauty and the purity and the love these big sentient creatures give you. And earlier on the day, I was on horseback. I mean, how amazing is that? I'm on horseback, I'm riding, I'm as fit as a flea, I'm happy and I'm peaceful. And how did I get it? I worked my backside off for it every single day. I work my backside off for it. I do everything I can do for recovery, my whole life's recovery. Like the play I wrote, Sapphire So Far, my journey so far, it's a big circle. It's a full circle, and it's full of miracles and sunshine and like butterflies, and it is. Things happen to you in life, right? You know, life hits you when life hits you, and it hits you hard. But we are prepared for life's ups and downs, swings and roundabouts, because that's life. Life's like that, you know. We take it on the chin, and there's always something that we can do, right? There's always a lesson, an experience, right? You know, nothing's too hard. Nothing in this life is too difficult for, you know, to be here. For my sister Yasmin's no here, and what I would give to have my Yasmin in my arms, what I would give. I can't save Yasmin, right? But I can save one of yous by taking you through the 12 steps. I can save one of yous, and it's that important to me. I'm going to leave my name in the chat, and if anybody wants to phone me and speak to me, I'm happy to do so. All you need to do is go through the 12 steps with a sponsor. They might say no to you, like mine did say no twice to me before I got a sponsor. It said, yes, that's okay. And experience life, guys, and start living. And it's never too late. So you go for your badge, as we say in Scotland. Slanjava, salam alaikum. Thank you so much. Back over to you.